Welcome to Residential Tech Talks. I'm Jeremy Glowacki, Executive Editor of Residential Tech Today. On this week's podcast, Scott Sullivan joins us from Novato, California, where he is president of SoundVision, the highly respected Bay Area custom integration firm that he founded back in 1998. Scott and I have crossed paths many times over the past 20 years, when first he was a passionate attendee at the CEDIA Management Conference, and in more recent years, a vocal participant in the HTSA buying group meetings. I've been remiss about sitting down with Scott and talking about his business in depth, so I felt like what better way to make up for lost time than to share that conversation here on the podcast. Scott Sullivan, thanks for joining us today to tell us a little bit about your career and to share some of your residential tech insights.
Happy to be here. I think this is going to be fun.
Yeah, I love that you love talking about what you do. That, like I said, makes my job easier as a press person, as a reporter, and interviewer. I realize that doing this on the podcast is kind of weird since we haven't sat down and talked, but I'm kind of weird at trade shows or conferences where making that first connection with somebody, even if I feel like I know them and I've seen them so many times, sometimes it's just an awkward thing for me to make that first icebreaker conversation. And for some reason, this has become a great icebreaker for me. So bear with me while we like sort of let it all out there to talk about your career and, give me some of your history and insights into what you do. So one of the first things that jumped out at me, I didn't realize you were an employee of Panamax back in the early days. You served as a national sales manager. So what initially connected you to that company, which appears to be your first connection to the custom integration industry?
Yeah, I didn't even know that industry existed, and stumbled into Panamax through a newspaper ad because they were looking for a customer service rep, and I was in construction at the time, and just kind of filling a gap and looking to not work in the rain anymore. So stumbled into Panamax, and I truly feel like I won the lottery. You know what I mean? It was such a great place to land. What a magnificent opportunity. And they served several industries, right? They served the telecom industry and the computer industry and the copier industry. But fortunately, I got coupled with a fantastic woman named Bonnie Perella. And Bonnie took me under her wing and she was an industry vet, and she showed me an industry I had no idea existed, and it was just such a fun place. So yeah, over time, when Bonnie left Panamax, I was able to transition into her role and take over as the national sales manager for this channel, and we were able to go to HTSA back then as a vendor. And I remember thinking, wow, these are the business people in our industry. You know what I mean? Not necessarily just the zealots, but the people who look at things differently. And that was super fun for me back there as a vendor. And then every other week, Jeremy, I got to get on an airplane and travel to another region where one of our reps would pick me up and drive me around and introduce me to the dealers in their territory. And I'd have done it for free. You know what I mean? It was so much fun. I mean, all the people were nice. They would talk about the stuff they did, and I didn't go pitch Panamax. That wasn't my strategy. What I would do is just go and ask them about their businesses. And for those of us that are in this industry, our business is usually one of our favorite topics. You know, it's it's our baby. And so these guys would open up and just tell me everything. It was awesome. I would look at their size, both in revenue and headcount, and what their org structures look like, and what their facilities look like, and their proposals and their drawings, and how their people presented themselves. And I started paying attention. And then the fun thing for me is that when I go see a guy and see what he was doing well, I'd make note of that. And then I'd sometimes share some of his techniques with the next guy I talk to.
Yeah.
Or what you didn't do well with. Well, this guy does great with that. I got to introduce you to this guy. He's terrific at that. You guys might really get along. And so I just kind of did that, naturally, I guess. But I almost made an effort to not talk about Panamax when I was calling on guys and just get to know them and see who they were. And once they realized that I was just a regular guy that they could trust, then I'd say, here's what I would do with Panamax. I would bring in these SKUs and I would present them like this, and here's the opening order I would do, and by the way, at the end of 6 months, if you're sitting on anything that's not moving, send it back. I'll send you a check, so there'll be zero risk on this, and
Hmm.
I want to help you succeed. And the product was good, and so yeah, it was just an unbelievable opportunity.
Now, had you had any? I see that you'd studied computer engineering and as well as economics, and apparently surfing and lacrosse as well came
Yeah.
into your college life style at least. But from 86 to 90 was when you're at UC Santa Cruz,
Yeah,
and
and I went there to surf, and I was a computer engineering major. And I remember, like maybe third quarter freshman year, I'm taking 8 o'clock calculus Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But Jeremy, typically the surf's best in the morning because
Mhm.
there's no wind, and so I was missing too many classes. And I don't mean to brag, but Santa Cruz is a pass fail college, and I got a P in that class, and I think it was by the skin of my teeth. And that was when I went, man, this computer engineering is not conducive to my surfing.
uh,
And I'd taken a general ed class the quarter before, intro to microeconomics, and I thought, well, this is just common sense. So I switched my major for the primary reason that I didn't want it to interrupt my surfing time.
okay, so you're more of an econ guy.
Yeah.
So really, your tech. I talked to so many people and want to ask them when was the earliest inclination that you were going to be in the tech space of some sort, whether it was taking stuff apart, putting it back together when you were a kid, or, being into, audio, being a musician, something like that. So was your work at Panamax your first real connection with tech other than the failed attempt at computer engineering because it was in the way
No,
of
I mean, I
surfing?
was a nerd. And so
Mm,
in high school, I was very fortunate that I went to a high school that had an exceptional uh, computer science program back in the early 80s.
okay.
And I had a professor named Ray Schrick that was just fantastic. And so we were programming in BASIC and programming in Pascal. And then we learned assembly language, and it was, or maybe got a taste of it. But that I was drawn to that. And I had a few friends, we were kind of the nerds there that were doing that stuff. And so I think that aided me a ton in understanding the systems we did so that when I went and got trained on how to program Crestron systems, it wasn't so alien to me. You know what I mean? It seemed like it was pretty simple. It was just another programming platform. I had that benefit, and the other super cool thing I had was my high school had an architectural program.
Hmm.
So I took 3 years of architecture in high school.
Wow.
We're doing primarily residential, but we're designing houses and green sheets and T squares and vellums and ink. And this was way before CAD existed. But my teacher was a builder, and so it kind of everything came together that by the time I got to Panamax, I understood construction from architecture. I'd
Hmm.
worked in construction just because after college wasn't sure what to do and stumbled into that. So I'd had some hands-on experience in the trades and the architecture and the programming. And of course, I loved stereos and music as much as the next guy back then. I mean, that was when CD players came out.
Sure.
Music sounded amazing.
Hmm.
So, yeah, this industry just seemed to capture all of that. I feel like I won the lottery to be so lucky to have found this industry that who knew existed.
Right. Yes. Well, unfortunately, so many that still don't realize it exists, but there are key people in your market that do, and that's what keeps you in business. What about that transition then from Panamax to owning your own integration firm? It looks like there's a bit of an overlap there where you
There
maybe
was.
were
I mean,
doing
Henry
some.
Moody owned Panamax back then, and he is a magnificent man. And him and Bill Pollock, who was the president, they knew that I started this side business, and we were doing, Dish Network and Direct TV installs, and my brother was doing the work, and I was kind of, I had two cell phones, the one for Panamax and the one for Pacific Satellite, and we were putting up satellite dishes, and and then a friend of mine offered me a job to move up to Sacramento, and he's going to pay me a bunch of money to come run sales for his company, and I took that job, and I was going to leave Panamax. And then I thought about it and thought, I've already had somebody pay me what felt to me like a lot of money
Mhm.
um, to work for them. I felt like I've checked that box. And so I called my buddy back and I said, I don't think I'm going to come. I got this little side business. I'm going to throw myself at this and see if I can build it into something.
Mm.
And he said, a great friend of mine from high school, and he goes, great call. Wish
Oh,
you
yeah.
nothing but success. Now, he sold that company for north of $100 million, 20 years later, and has done very well. And I imagine I probably would have done just fine there too, but I don't regret a second, because this industry is fun. The people that we meet at CEDIA, at HTSA, the other tradesmen we get to work with in our local market, they're my kind of people.
Yeah. Well,
It's just awesome.
what were the early transition from that satellite business where you finally committed to being a full-time owner of an integration firm, and it's what it is as far as name, SoundVision today? What was the sort of transition point to become a bigger time integration company versus
Well,
a satellite guy?
back then, I felt if I was going to throw myself at it, I didn't want to be a big satellite company. I mean, that didn't really have any appeal. Um, but I remember selling my first $13,000 Fujitsu plasma TV,
Oh
which
yeah.
seemed like $1 million at the time. Uh, and but I'd had the good fortune of really seeing under the veil of so many great integration companies that my
Hmm.
thought was, this was right after 9/11, when I threw myself at it full time, where traveling didn't seem so appealing because it was so
Okay.
difficult.
Yeah.
And I thought, Amy and I were talking about having kids. So I didn't want to be traveling all the time. And I felt like I'd gotten an education in the industry. Literally, like, if you were going to start a company in this industry, let's say you were a Harvard Business School student and you were going to start a company in this industry, and you wanted to go out and interview integrators, all the best integrators across the country, to see how they do everything, to kind of create a cookbook. I don't know if you were doing that, if you'd have gotten a better opportunity than what I had given to me.
Hmm.
While Panamax paid me to go out and get an education in the industry, and then allowed me to stay there, working there while starting this company, and it just, I had a support structure around me that could not have been more supportive, and I'm incredibly grateful to Bill Pollock over at Panamax, and Henry Moody over at Panamax, the owner at the time, and these guys, and Bonnie Perella, who taught me the industry, uh, to have gotten that gift, so that I didn't have to figure things out. And then, Jeremy, what was amazing was I knew all these guys, and so as I'm running into the struggles that every one of us in this industry runs into, I had like a team of mentors standing by that I could call and ask questions, and see, I've gotten to go to Leon Shaw's place, and David Young's place, and Jeff Hoover's place, and it was just some of these iconic players in the industry. I'd gotten to go to Gramophone when Brian Hudkins was running Gramophone, and what Joe Barrett was doing. Barrett's, I got to go see what all these different flavors looked like. And then I got to kind of try to glean what flavor would work in this market. And then the other thing that I was incredibly lucky is that here in the San Francisco Bay Area, at least in the North Bay where I am, there was no industry leader. Engineered Environments was here, but they were covering the Bay Area and just this gigantic, they were going everywhere. And so here in this little San Francisco North Bay market was somewhat fragmented, right? And and so I got to start in a market where there wasn't really a known market leader, and I feel like I got to do that in the San Francisco Bay Area starting in 2000. I mean, that was when the tech boom was really kicking in. So I feel like we're experiencing as a race, as humans on this planet, are experiencing a wealth creation event here in the Bay Area that's unprecedented in the history of the world. With your Apples and Googles and Facebooks and Adobes and Salesforces and Twitters and all these other Teslas, these companies that are here that have billion and trillion dollar market caps. Well, all that money is flowing through our market, and so we've got a inherent group of people here that love tech and have virtually unlimited funds and are looking for a partner to help them get creative. So if we're going to start a business in this industry, and you could pick a time and place in the history of the world, this wouldn't be a bad choice.
So when you're seeing this opportunity and you're putting yourself into this full time now, and you've taken all these lessons and insights from around the country, what does that model look like for you? What are you saying? This is what my company is going to look like. Is it unique because of that tech boom being right there that you do something like different than all these others you've seen with just the lessons that they've taught you, or is there kind of a model that says I want it to be this way. I wanted to have this kind of a showroom. What was that initial business like?
I don't know how. I mean, I discovered deep tools back then. That was liberating to help us be able to document and do things more than just a room or two. So that was a huge impact on our ability. And I didn't know what I was doing from running a business standpoint because there's just no classes for that. So I was really hungry for that kind of stuff, and I was going to the CE Pro management conferences and
Mm-hmm.
kind of really what I was doing was I had my filter on and I was listening for who was asking questions. I still do that in HTSA, CEDIA, whatnot.
Yeah.
Try to listen to who's asking interesting questions and then go talk to them later.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I was really interested in was revenue per head.
Okay.
If we look at this industry, what I didn't want to do was go have somebody tell me how to run a business that was doing $1.5 million in revenue with 17 people,
Mm.
right? Because that guy's not making any money. And I feel like profitability is the responsibility of a good business owner.
Mm-hmm.
And so I felt like revenue per head was a easy way to see the profitability of a company. So once I'd look at the CE Pro 100, and that was one of the things I would look at. I wanted to understand who was doing north of $300,000 of revenue per head, because that was somebody I wanted to talk to. That's somebody I wanted to see what and how, because I feel like in our industry, efficiency is the secret, right?
Yeah.
The company that's the most efficient is going to be the winner. And so I've just kind of been a fanatic about how to create efficiency. So I read business books like crazy. I read, my buddy Novato, another guy runs a great business.
Oh yeah.
I trade business books back and forth. Keith Burrows over at Sierra Integrated, same, just trying to study and find as many mentors as I can to coach me on this stuff because I don't have any inherent ability. So trying to learn the accounting side, the business side, and the leadership side, and the managing people side. Those were all things that, at Panamax, I had a nickname of Ramrod. And Jeremy, it was not a term of endearment. My skills at getting things done within the organization were horrifying.
Okay.
And, fortunately, I was serving the satellite market at the time, which was just exploding. So I was in the right place at the right time, and I was able to get away with it.
Right.
And so, I had a long road ahead of me as far as learning how to be more effective. I'm still working on that, about how to be more effective working with people and in groups and things like that. It's just a skill that many of us don't get taught, and I surely didn't.
Yeah, that's those soft skills. It's like beyond management. It's a whole other thing. But I want to drill down a little bit more on how you found success with that revenue per head.
It did some things. We hired a sales trainer at one point in time,
Okay.
about 10, 15 years ago, a guy named Chip Doyle that we met through a local NARI meeting. And Chip was part of the Sandler sales organization, which I know several people have used. I know Novato used it in his organization. And he came in because I was like most integrators, I think, I was the primary salesperson. And we were doing maybe $3 million with about 12 people. And it was profitable and it was fine. But Jeremy, for us to do more meant I was doing more. And I was probably working 50, 60-hour weeks. And I was not interested in doing more. I got passions. I got things I love to do. And work is one of them, but it's certainly not the only one. And so I was trying to figure out how to delegate, right? How to get the stuff off my plate. And sales was taking up a huge chunk of my time. So we hired the sales trainer. I have an employee now, an exceptional guy named Brian Stang. And Brian is one of the most naturally gifted people persons that I've ever met. And he was hell bent that he couldn't sell. And we hire the sales trainer, and he comes in. And basically, he never came in. It was just 1 hour conference call once a week.
Okay.
So 4 1-hour calls a month. He charged me $3,000 a month for that. And I did that for 6 months. I spent $15,000 on this. And at the end of that, if he'd have told me that he made a mistake and the price was double, I'd have paid it because it was worth it.
Oh,
He was
wow.
so good. But
Okay.
the best thing about this thing, Jeremy, was he sits down. We're all sitting down around this thing at 6:30 in the morning around one of those little Polycom,
Yeah.
little table speaker phones. And he says, okay, rule number 1, be less persuasive.
Okay.
Rule number 2, we don't care if they buy. And
Okay.
instantly, me and Brian and Steve and Nate, the other 2 guys that were in there with us, you could just see the pressure come off of those guys.
Huh.
Like, I don't have to have a trick. And he said, Scott, how do you sell motorized shades? And I ask, where do you want motorized shades? And he goes, what if they say I don't want motorized shades? What do you say? I say, okay. There's no tricks, right? I'm just there to help. Whatever you want, we're going to do that.
Yeah.
And so that was the beginning of my world changing, because then these guys go out and start building relationships and then having them call them, which they were doing already. But a potential customer would call them, they'd say, oh, talk to Scott. And now they got comfortable saying, oh, I'll come meet you. And they worked the process from there. And we created, obviously, I'm a systems and processes guy. My brother Earl worked with me for the first 7 years before he went on a 18-month sabbatical. That was about 13 years ago, and he's still on his sabbatical.
Okay.
A surf camp down in Indonesia.
Oh.
But Earl was awesome, because Earl was, I don't want to figure out how to do it. I want to figure out how to create a system so that we can repeat it. And Earl was incredibly elemental early on in those days of us creating and documenting our systems and our processes for how we do things, so that by the time we plugged these other guys into selling, they didn't have to recreate the wheel. I mean, we really just went out. We had these little forms we could fill out to do these client intakes, and then you just handed it to an engineer, and he put it into D-Tools and turned it into a beautiful proposal, right? You didn't have to do that. All you had to do was evaluate it, make sure it looked right, and then go back and present it and make sure that it fit what the customer wanted. And again, we're doing that. Not to go cliche, but it's almost like shooting fish in a barrel. We're doing that in the Bay Area, full of tech billionaires and millionaires who want the coolest stuff, and we get to go. We're literally educating ourselves on what's the coolest stuff for your house. So it was awesome. But that part, our goal, we'd written a vision statement and a mission statement. We hired consultants. We wanted to build a great company from the get-go. Right? It wasn't about making money or whatever. It was about building a great company. And so we were trying to do all the building blocks that it was going to take to make a good company, and trying to emulate and the guys out there that were good companies. And we had engineered environments in our market. And Randy Stearns was a real guru in the industry back then, because he I felt was one of the first ones to really bring running a business perspective to this industry. And I think our industry owes Randy a credit for that. And we all know the story. Randy got very aggressive and built VIA, and that didn't happen to not work.
Right.
And he and I have talked about that since, and he's talked about, here's the things I would have done differently. But that guy was really, really good for this industry. And he was also great about sharing. He would go to CEDIA and share how they did and what they did and take the classes. And I was sitting in them and learning. You know what I mean? So I think that's one of the other great things about our industry, is how open and willing to share people are, because we're kind of a brotherhood. I don't know if I answered your question. I might have got sidetracked.
No, you did. And the thing about Randy, he was our first cover for residential systems when we launched back in 2000. And I picked him because of the MBA background. And he was funny in that everyone else I would talk to in the industry, their first thing they were into was the tech and the products and all that. And that was the last thing that he was really interested in. He was interested in the business and running the business. And he would leave the passion for the tech part of it to others in his organization. So I think that was a rare thing where that didn't get in the way of him running a good business.
And I don't think I'm as pure as Randy was, and that I am a bit of a nerd and I kind of like the gear.
Yeah.
but I would say I lean more towards Randy's side of the business is the part that fascinates me much more than the gear. And Randy had a great quote years ago where we're talking about gear or whatever, and he said something about the brand of black box that we put in the rack is about as relevant to the customer as the brand of drill we use to drill the holes.
Mm,
And I
right.
thought, oh, I love this guy because he gets it. So many people were so passionate about it. It has to be AMX or it has to be Crestron or it has to be Lutron or it has to be whatever. And Randy's like, who cares? We're solving problems. Whose box is in the back that's doing that is up to us to evaluate and choose the right product for really good reasons. But we don't need to hang our hat on it. It doesn't
Right.
really matter. I
Uh,
thought he understood that really well.
Well, after the break, we will continue our conversation with Scott Sullivan.
Do you want superior smart home automation at a great value? Shelly Wi-Fi relays by Alterco Robotics cover DC to line voltage, allowing you to control lights, outlets, appliances, garage doors, pumps, and much more. There are Shelly sensors and power measurement devices to help you measure temperature, humidity, lux, or motion, and electrical consumption from single wire to 3-phase with neutral. You can use Shelly with a licensed driver for Control 4, Elon, or other premium systems, as well as your customer's existing hub, voice assistant, or any platform that accepts REST, MQTT, or CoAP. Shelly can make IoT very easy. Available now at Blackwire, City Electric Supply, and Worthington, or at shellyusa.com.
Welcome back. We're talking with Scott Sullivan, president of SoundVision. Scott, so to continue on, one of the big, I guess, pushes in our industry to try to make companies more self-sustaining and sellable, and something that you could retire from was that idea of adding recurring revenue or a service model. Is that something that you've had to contend with as well, or have you not gotten there?
That's a really good question, Jeremy, and I've got an opinion on this, believe it or not, that may be different than many of my peers. But I watched really smart guys, and as I was watching this industry from 7 or 8 years at Panamax to my time in this industry, what I wasn't seeing was companies like ours getting bought regularly and guys walking away with, never need to work again money.
Mhm.
And so I thought, well, if that's not happening, I guarantee you I am not the smartest guy in this industry, not even close. And so I thought if they're not all doing it, the probability of me doing it's probably pretty slim. And I have my econ background and I've always been interested in investing. And so my thought was, I don't need to grow and build this company to sell it to retire. What I want to do is make a professional income and live below my means and squirrel away money and learn how to invest.
Okay.
And I was able to find some mentors on that side too, some guys that I'd met at this local golf course um, that I play at, and the guys were again incredibly generous with their time and coaching me, and so I was able to hit a few grand slams on investments, both in the stock market, but then parlaying that into real estate and getting into investing in apartment buildings and other types of properties, and then we bought the building that we're in now, and we're able to upgrade the building, and we're in a small portion of the front of this building, but we're able to upgrade that so that our tenants in the back of the building cover all the costs associated with it. So we don't have any costs. And so my goal was to kind of use those kinds of tools to set myself up for retirement, because I just didn't see this industry being that kind of a model where companies are getting bought and people are walking away with significant amounts of money. And over a 20-year period of buying real estate in the San Francisco Bay Area, that again is another example of right place, right time. So that again, I got to pinch myself, but at this point, I'm good. Barring some kind of an earthquake where we all fall into the ocean. So I look at the recurring revenue side. It's fascinating to me to watch everybody chase it in this industry.
Yeah.
And I could be the dummy in the room, but I don't understand it. I look at it and think, I don't charge it. I don't sell recurring revenue plans. Because I think that if my mom was in another state and she was working with one of our colleagues and doing something like this, and she was in the income area of our typical customers, and she sent a proposal over to me and said, "Scotty, should I buy the support plan?" I would tell her, no. No, what I would do is design systems that aren't nearly as vulnerable, and then you don't need the support plan. And I think that would be a better answer. And that's kind of been our model. So that I tell we have a support plan built into our proposals. It's always there, but it's the first year. And our point with that is, what that says is if there's any problems in the first year, no matter what, it's our problem. And after the first year, sometimes customers say, "Hey, can I extend that?" And I tell them, not only can you not extend it, you don't want to. You're not going to need it. Buy service on an as-needed basis. You'll be happier. You'll spend less. We've got a service department that's incredibly responsive. We're going to be all over it. So it's not like you need something special. And Jeremy, I think there are exceptions to this rule. I've got friends over at, let's say, Paragon or SAV, where you're serving. I know in South Florida, the same idea, where you're serving vacation homes, high-end vacation homes. That's a different animal, right? Where the stuff sits and sometimes things lock up and they come to town and they haven't used the system on a regular basis, so they don't remember how things work. I think that the concierge type services that those guys provide are necessary, but they're unique, I think, to those markets. Right. For many markets where it's somebody's primary home and you're serving not just, the 0.01% of the customers and they're using the stuff regularly, I don't know that that's as relevant. We got into the alarm business for the recurring revenue, and over a relatively quick period discovered that we hate the alarm business. There's no love there. There's no passion there. And with the talent of my guys and based on that talent, the fact that I need to pay them dramatically more than an alarm company, we weren't being real competitive. And I don't want to be in a market where I can't be competitive. Right. I feel like if I'm doing something where I don't feel like I would do business with me, if I knew what I know and was a customer, then I don't want to do it. And so that was where we ended up with alarms. So we were able to transition our accounts over to a local alarm company, Redwood Security, who's been exceptional at taking these over. And we're all serving the same clients anyway. And so we tend to work with each other on most of the projects, and it works out great.
You say about your responsive service department, do you find it to be kind of invasive into your personal life still, or do you have a service situation where it's certain hours, or do you use like a company like OneVision for?
No, we don't do that. I love that idea. And I know a lot of my colleagues do. We have really focused our efforts on a little differently. We don't like centralized systems. We don't like distributed video. We find those systems tend to be the weakest link. So we've tried to go away from them so that we don't get the call that says, "My system is down."
Yeah.
Right? Because there is no system. There's a media system in the family room. There's a TV in the kitchen. There's a media system in the rec room. There's maybe a theater, but they're all independent. And, networks for sure. I mean, we've had a customer tell me, "Scotty, I can live for 3 days without water. I need my network up." That's become like the more essential than lighting is the network. Yeah. But, what we did is we have, to answer your question, we have a service manager. We have a service manager and 2 dedicated service techs, because after 20 years and thousands of customers out there, we need it. And the other problem, Jeremy, is we found ourselves, we were getting booked out sometimes over 2 weeks in service, which is not okay. And I remember talking to our service manager one time, and I said, "Joe, how many of these customers are not systems that we installed?" And he said, "Man, maybe 40%. And I said, "Well, make them go away." Right? Because I don't want to make my customers wait while we're out servicing systems that were done by others.
Yeah.
And he says, "How do we do that?" And I said, I don't know. And I said, "Charge a higher rate." And we're in an expensive market here, Jeremy. So we're $3.99 for a service call.
Okay.
And so I said, let's go $6.99. So we were $6.99 for a service call. And if that sounds like an outrageous amount of money, then we agree. And he says, "Okay." And so a month later, we sit down together and I said, "Hey, how's the backlog?" Because one of the things we always look at is our backlog, and how's it working, and what's happening with the non-SoundVision customers. And he goes, no, it's not really working. And I said, why? And he goes, they're paying it.
Oh my God.
And the reality is that there are so many companies. I think our industry oftentimes has a bad reputation within the trades and the general community at large, and that's a well-earned bad reputation, in my opinion. And there's so many companies that, like you said, the guys get in the business because they love the tech, but they can't run a business. And what typically suffers is servicing my past clients. That's usually the first thing that suffers because I'm so busy chasing the next deposit to pay my guys for the last project because they don't manage money particularly well. Again, how would they? They've never been trained in this. And so our industry's full, and the barriers to entry are so low, that our industry's full of guys like that. So we ran into that issue. But the beauty of that, and to answer your question as far as the demand on me, many of my customers have my cell phone number. They're welcome to that. So I do get some calls for people that need service, and I very quickly make them feel special and important and make sure they know that they matter to me. And then I say, I'm going to follow up real quickly. And then I text my service manager and he handles it. He calls them back immediately. Hey, I'm on this. But one of the things that we did that I thought was real creative, I think it was my brother's idea back in the day, was whenever somebody needed after-hours service, we created an APB. So it's basically a blast that goes out to all our techs. This is APB. This customer at this address needs this service. Now that we're on iPoint, they just have their app. They can look it up and see all the information. But it would basically say APB for this service call. And the guys knew that if it was after hours, the first guy to claim it gets it. Call the customer immediately and schedule to get them taken care of. And you'll get paid for your time. And the next morning when you come into the office, you'll get $500 in cash.
Ooh, okay.
Right? And so who wasn't willing to interrupt an evening or a weekend for $500 in cash?
Yeah.
And so what we found was, as opposed to hiring an outside firm or something like that, if we had this ability, then our customers feel like superstars because they get responded to immediately by a company guy who knows their system and has access to all their proprietary information and can service them. And yes, I lose money on that service call, but Keith Esterly, who's at HTSA that runs those relationship science classes, I know you know Keith.
Yep.
Keith has a great line that the service department is the referral department, and he's right. I mean, that guy is an unbelievable talent, and came out and trained all our guys on how to make sure that people feel like they're the most important people in the whole wide world. And in our world, nobody touches more people than service techs. They go to 3 houses a day typically. So with 2 of those guys, if you're hitting 6 customers a day and making them feel like they're the most important people in the whole wide world, man, you're just supercharging that referral base.
Yeah.
That's been super strong for us.
Yeah, what a great insight there. And I love listening to Keith speak at the HTSA events. And I think I saw you at the Indianapolis one, the most recent event, which is in my backyard, and listen to him. He puts a smile on my face because he's entertaining and insightful at the same time.
It's so few and far between. But Jeremy, I don't mean to have my pom-poms on, but the value that Keith Esterly brings is so staggering. He's one of the greatest trainers I've ever seen on how to create relationships within an industry and whatnot. And he comes from our industry and specializes it. That man is a unicorn.
Yeah.
He is one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. He brings so much value. And the stuff that my guys use on a regular basis after having spent a few days with Keith is staggering, the how effective it is. And really it's about treating people. He's turned it into a science of how to treat people the way they want to be treated, so that they feel it, so that they feel that they're so special and important. And I'm a big believer that people don't know how good a work we do, right? I mean, if a customer goes and looks at the gear that we install, they don't know if we did a good job or a bad job. They have no point of reference.
Mm-hmm.
We try to install it. We kind of have this thing that we call standards of excellence, where we have this weekly meeting, or now it's every other week we have an all-team meeting. But at that meeting, we go around the room and every employee has a folder on the server where they share several photographs of the work they did over the past 2 weeks to just show creative solutions and just the labeling, the serviceability, the waterproofing, the way they think about every detail to just set the standard for workmanship in the industry. Because our mantra is, we don't want to impress the customer with that. They don't know.
Yeah.
But if one of our competitors ever comes over and sees our work, we want them to go, dang, that's really something, right?
Right.
So our thought is that many of us chase that and think that customers should refer us because we're so good technically, but they don't know. And so one of our mantras is that we want to do great work technically, but what I think is as important, if not more important, is we want to make customers feel like we recognize them, value them, serve them, like them, just make them feel like they're the most special people in the whole wide world.
Yeah.
And when once we do that, man, we create a team of zealots out there selling for us.
Right.
And that's been amazing for us, so that, on the sales side, as the sales have been transitioning away from me and towards the other guys, you literally feel like you're showing up to a bunch of starving people and going, who wants a hamburger? Right? I mean, everybody does.
Yeah.
They come to us just ready. You know what I mean? Literally, we get the call where it's like, my architect, my builder, my designer told me we have to talk to you guys. Here's the stuff we want to do. Not, I want to bid.
Yeah.
Here's what we want to do. We need your help. Right? It's just been an amazing place to be. And it fascinates me in our industry to watch how much effort people spend on marketing or traveling for work or trying to chase jobs. And I think and again, maybe I'm wrong. We're in a market that's just so fertile.
Right.
That we're unbelievably blessed. But our technique of project management, as far as making not only our customers feel amazing, but I want to make their tradesmen feel amazing. The contractor working with, the principal, the project manager, the on-site guy, the laborer. I want to know his name. I want to give him a SoundVision shirt. I want him to feel recognized and important. And by the way, you're a partner of ours. And if you ever need anything for your house, please don't hesitate to call. We always take care of our partners. We do that to the electricians, the painters, the plumbers, so that we get work referred to us from all of these people just because they know that we treat people kindly.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and again, it's take 22 years to do it, but it's a really fun place to be.
Well, I mean, and that whole approach seems like, especially currently, it's kind of a dying art, so to speak. You don't get that experience a lot from day-to-day interactions right now, just because whatever it is, labor shortages or people just feeling down about whatever, you're getting less than you used to get from a customer experience. So you're
just
talking
humanity.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's social media. I don't know what it is, but this whole connecting with people and looking them in the eye and doing things for them and making them feel recognized and special and human is something that I think is core to all of us. And I think people are starving for it, and we're bringing that to them. And here's the beauty of it, is that if I can bring that to you, Jeremy, and make you feel wonderful and special and important, you know who walks away feeling just as wonderful, special, and important?
You do. I mean,
of course.
Yeah, you give, and you receive. It's all together.
Exactly right. And so that's been the greatest thing about it, is that as Keith has worked with us and we've worked on this stuff with our staff, that we're out there. Our purpose, if you will, is we go through the why, is to improve lives. We really pound that home. But it is the life of our customers. We want to improve their lives. But that's one group. We also want to improve the lives of our colleagues here, and the lives of our vendors and industry friends and partners, and the lives of every other design, build, trade professional we interact with. And the beauty of that is that at the end of the day, you just feel good because you're out there not trying to make a buck and not trying to do this and not trying to take advantage of anybody, but out there trying to improve lives with everybody we touch. I mean, it's a satisfying thing that makes your days feel good. And you touched on another thing just now when you were talking, and that was the labor shortage, if you will, or the challenge that we have finding people.
Mm-hmm.
And we found that once we took that attitude of being that kind of a place to work, and we built a beautiful design center here where we show off the technology, and that was for our customers, kinda, but mostly for our staff. We have a magnificent space with the glass, door fridge stocked full of drinks, like you're in a 7-Eleven with all the snacks. And it's all free and it's all there and it's all for the staff. And then our warehouse is really our shining thing. We kind of have this mantra of race, shop, clean. If you've ever been in a race shop, like Formula One race shop, where everything's just spotless and there's a place for everything, and it's just all about efficiency. Our warehouse is fabulous, and our website, we've made a big push to kind of show what it's like to work here. It's maybe different than other places, and I'm a believer that you get the talent you deserve. And so what we decided, Brian and I, years ago, and now Scott Sorensen, who's another superstar here, is we've been focusing on how do we change our message or our persona to attract, to be worthy of superstars, And so we wanted to make it a culture, an environment, a comp plan, a benefits plan, the type of projects we do, the type of support we give people. We wanted to touch on as many things as we could to try to be best in class, so that the greatest people in the industry were drawn towards us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's worked. I mean, the talent we have, the team we have here is world class, and to the point, Jeremy, that I am semi-retired. I mean, I'm off most days at 1. I take 4 weeks of vacation a quarter, and there's not that much for me to do, because I could do it myself, or I could hand it to one of the other guys and it will get done better. Right? They're that good that I'm the dumbest guy here, and it has made my life so much more interesting and fun.
And how big of a staff are you up to these days?
There's 24 of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you experiencing some of the new tech trends? I'll wrap up with that, because I've had you here for a while, but I know, being an HTSA member, that lighting is a big push. Are you dabbling in lighting at all? Or
we are. Okay. I think that's another category that I have huge expectations for. I hired a lighting designer. She was really great. But unfortunately, it was right before COVID. And then when we wanted to go out and present that skill set to our design build community, everything was closed, and we didn't have that opportunity, and she got impatient and left. And now it would have been a grand slam. And we have a lighting design philosophy, and I need to find a great lighting designer that wants to live and work in this market. And when I do, we are going to set records, I think, because we have a vision. I have a philosophy on this that I think that the market is craving. Mm-hmm. And so I think the amount of opportunity there is amazing. And that's another unbelievable asset that we as an industry have, and Tom Doherty.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what a brilliant guy Tom is. And now HTSA has him on board and spearheading this initiative to get into lighting, not just a little bit, but a lot. And if you guys have gotten into it pretty well, I think that's going to turn into a tidal wave, and they couldn't have a smarter guy, a more able, just the right man for the job. Tom Doherty is another superstar that John Robbins has cherry picked and put in the right position. Talk about the right person, right seat. Yeah. Tom is that guy, and I have learned so much from him. And I think he's gonna deserve some kind of an industry achievement award for all the iterations that Tom has had in his life. But I think this is going to be his crown jewel of bringing us into that industry. And quite frankly, I think the market is going to win, because I think the lighting design and the way that lighting is delivered into the residential market is flawed. It's inherently broken. Yeah. And I think that we're going to help the industry fix that. And Tom has been unbelievably instrumental in that.
Absolutely. Well, hey, we could keep talking probably for another hour, but I respect your time, and I we'll just do this again, and we'll talk more on the tech side and catch up with more of the business as well. So, Scott, so happy to finally connect and chat and get caught up. So, good luck with the holiday season as we wrap it up here and into the new year for you.
And Jeremy, it's been my pleasure. I've been reading residential systems, my whole career, and I love everything you've been doing, and it's fun to get a chance to just sit and chat about an industry that we both love.
Well, thanks again, and great talking to you. Congratulations on everything and all your success, and everything in the future as well.
Been a pleasure.
Yeah, Scott Sullivan is president of SoundVision in Novato, California. You can learn more about his company at svsf.com. That wraps up today's show. Special thanks to Pretty Easy Podcast for producing and editing this episode. If you're new to Residential Tech Talks, please subscribe to the weekly podcast wherever you watch or listen to podcasts. Also, check out all the latest residential tech news at the magazine's website, restechtoday.com, where you can also subscribe to the print or digital magazine and to our Tuesday and Friday email newsletters. Until next time, please stay safe, stay inspired, and let us know if you have a great story to tell.
Residential Tech Talk, lighting specialist, residential tech. Home automation, smart device, home or smart house.